Before getting into makeup, I was told to avoid powders at all costs because powder and dry skin, no. And so I did. For a while, I was avoiding powders. However, there are times where I've seen my makeup just like, especially blush, disappear. Where'd it go? And sometimes, you know when you have your nails done and you like you're moving your hair out of your face and you touch your makeup and there's like residue of makeup on your fingers? That's annoying. For me at least, it's so annoying. Now, some people may require powder, some people may not. It all depends on you, your skin type, how you care for your skin, and the method of how you're applying your makeup powder. So in today's video, I thought I'd share some tips on how to apply powder for dry skin, because we don't have to avoid it if we don't want to. It's not gonna look powdery, it's not gonna look cakey. Just follow these tips and I assure you, you can wear powder and have an airbrush finished look and long-lasting makeup that's not gonna cling to your nails. First, some tips on how to use powder for dry skin. Your skin prep is super important. As with anything and everything you do, skin prep reigns supreme here. If you exfoliate the night before, you don't want to exfoliate the morning of. You don't want to over exfoliate your skin because sometimes that can do more harm than good. So if you exfoliate the night before, don't exfoliate the morning of. But if you don't exfoliate the night before, go ahead and exfoliate the morning of. Go in with your moisturizer and your normal skincare routine. Let it all settle in before applying makeup. So give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to let your skincare settle in before going in with your makeup. Use powders where needed. Sometimes you'll see people use powder all over their face, and that's fine because sometimes they have oily skin and that's what they need. That's what they need for their concerns. But we have dry skin. If you have dry skin, you're not going to want to use powder everywhere. It's not where you need it. So maybe you have issues with your blush slipping off. You know, it's an emollient formula, let's say. So go ahead and powder over just your cheek. Powder over your forehead if you need to. See where you need the powder, and that's where you'll use powder, and I promise it won't look bad. You got my guarantee. When choosing a powder, you want to look for finishes that are luminous or have like some glow to it. If you use a mattifying powder, it's not bad. Again, you just want to be careful how you go about applying it. But using a luminous or a glowy finish powder is going to still keep your skin, it's going to keep your skin looking fresh and not super matte or desert dry. When you use powder, go in with a very light hand. We're going to get into this further, but don't be excessive with your powder. Again, we don't need an excessive amount because our skin is dry. So try to be very, very light. Knowing your skin and how it reacts, go by that and be as light as possible with your powder. If you need a little extra, go ahead. But starting off light is key. And the tools you use will make a very big difference. A powder puff and a brush will give you two very different applications. And we're gonna get into this in a little bit. Pros of using powder is that it can increase the longevity of your makeup. No questions asked. Powder truly does increase the longevity of your makeup. And it gives a flawless airbrush finish. It makes your skin look beautiful, depending how you use it, of course. The cons of it, of course, is that if it's used incorrectly or too much, it can look cakey, that dreaded cakiness that we all don't want. We all do not like. No one wants cakey makeup, and it'll look awful. It'll look bad, and then we'll feel bad, and we don't want that. Another con is that it can enhance dry areas and skin texture. This is why you want to be careful and see where you need to apply the powder. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. So the tools to use to apply powder, generally you'll see a lot of people use a triangle puff, and it's fine. I use this very rarely, honestly. I hardly pick this up. It's good, it works good. However, I feel powder puffs are more for people who have oily or combination skin types. If you have dry skin, a brush is definitely the way to go. I find I like the way it looks better and it applies better for me with a brush than with a powder puff. For me, a brush just gives a more light, natural finish than with a powder puff. It looks a little more saturated. Before we go ahead and start applying powder, I want to show you some of my favorite brushes that I like to use with powder. There's a lot. Now you don't need all of these. I'm not saying you need all these brushes, but just to give you an idea of what kind of brush you would want to use. These are the brushes. These are mainly BK Beauty. I love their brushes. They make the softest brushes and they just work so beautifully. Absolutely my favorite brushes so far. So let's get the big guys out the way. This one is a Sigma fluffy brush. It's their F30, and then similarly is the F18 from ColourPop, and I'm gonna throw this in here as well, the A507 from BK Beauty and Angie Hot and Flashy. These are good brushes for all over the face. This one I also like for powder blush as well. It works for creams and liquids, but I really like the way it blends out powder as well. So these are my three favorite for all over the face. When it comes to under the eyes or if you want a more precision application, this one is holy grail status right now. It's the BK Beauty N14 Nikki Rose brush. This one, BK Beauty 113. I love this one for under the eyes. This is perhaps one of my all-time favorites for under the eyes. And then 110 for more precision as well. The N15, this is great for like powder blush as well, but good for precision. And the Sigma F37 is also good for like a light dusting of powder. Those are my favorite brushes when it comes to applying powder. I don't use them all at once or anything. You don't need all of them, but a good precision one, a good all over the face one, and a good under eye one. So now let's get into it. Let's get into the application. The powders I'm going to use are the Huda Beauty Loose Setting Powder, the baking powder. This is in Pound Cake. I got the mini because when you can get a mini, why not? And then the Charlotte Tilbury in Fair. I'm going to use the loose powder for under the eyes, and I'm going to use the pressed powder for all over the face. And you can do this in reverse, however you like. On one side of my face, I'm going to use a brush, and then on the other side, I'm going to use the powder puff, so that you can compare and just see the difference of a powder puff versus a brush. So on a clean piece of tissue, I'm just gonna tap some of the powder out. And that gives way more than enough. On my right side, I'm going to use the brush. I'm gonna take my favorite 113 and I'm just gonna dip it into the powder. This is how much it picked up, and you can see it's not distributed evenly onto the brush. So if you go in right away with this large amount, it's gonna look cakey, it's gonna look bad real fast. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have no creases under your eyes. So let's go ahead and remove that. Everything I have on, I will have linked down below as well. Don't go from this to here. Tap some off, and you're left with that. I'm gonna take what's left and I'm gonna rub it into the palm of my hand until we have a nice even distribution. I'm gonna start from out here. I'm not gonna go right on the inner corner of my eye. I feel like sometimes it can emphasize just more of the fine lines or texture that you have going on there. I like to put as little as possible on the inner corner and on the outer corner. So again, we're gonna gently press the powder into the under eye, and we're doing small tapping motions, and you want to keep going until it's distributed. Can you see the difference already between this eye and that eye? So now I'm going to go ahead and with a damp sponge just press that in. So now on the left side, we're going to go ahead again, take out any creasing. And now with my powder puff, I'm going to dip into that powder, and look at how much it picked up. So again, you don't want to go from this under the eye. You want to do the same thing. Distribute that evenly into the palm of your hand until it looks like that. You want it to look evenly distributed so that you get an even application. And now same thing, starting from the outer corner to the inner corner, we're going to go ahead and press this into the under eye. Same thing, press it in. There you go. This is with the powder puff, and this is with the brush. What do you think so far? If you have dry skin, have you avoided powders? Do you use powders? I used to not use it, but I've actually grown to really love using powders. So now we're gonna take the mini pressed powder, and this is what we're going to use for, I'm just gonna, again, I know where I need the powder. I know that the foundation I have isn't going anywhere, so I'm just gonna put it right here on my forehead and on my cheeks and maybe around my nose. Maybe not. For this one, I'm going to use, which brush do I want to use? So again, for this side, I'm going to take the A506 and I'm just going to grab some powder. Same thing, I don't want to go in with this much powder directly onto my face. So I'm going to do the same thing and just work it in first. And we have a more evenly distributed finish. And I'm going to go ahead and just go over my cheek. And I'm going to go in pressing motion. I'm not going to drag or move it around. I'm gonna just hit this half of my forehead, again in pressing motion. Sponge. See the difference? I still have a just minor glow peeking through. It did tame down my blush, but we can go ahead, add some powder blush on top of that and it will be just fine. It gives a nice airbrushed finish. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. We're gonna flip it over, so that we're using just the powder that's going to get on this side and not mix it with what's left on this side from the loose powder. So we're not adding any extra powder onto our skin. So I'm going to go ahead, same thing. I'm really going to just work it in there. I don't want all that going onto my face. So I'm going to go ahead, work it in until we're evenly distributed. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to press this onto the cheeks. And this side of the forehead, same thing. So what do you think? We're gonna go ahead and add some color back onto our cheeks. I'm gonna use the 110 brush if you're curious, and just dab that. Okay, so now that we got the powders on and we've added a pop of blush back onto our skin, the last thing you want to do is use a setting spray, preferably a hydrating setting spray, because this is just adding back some hydration back onto our skin. And the one I'm going to be using today is the one from Cali Ray, the Surf Proof Hydrating Setting Spray. I love this stuff and it really is long lasting, so love this setting spray. With the Sephora sale coming up, if you haven't tried this, I recommend you do. So I'm gonna give it a shake. Okay, give it a good spritz and press it in. So as you see, it can be beneficial to use powder even if you have dry skin, especially with the warmer weather coming in. We shouldn't fret when it comes to doing so. It looks beautiful. It all comes down to your technique and how you go applying it. And I'll show you, even in natural light, it's not looking cakey. My under eyes are not looking heavy. The only thing I will say, this powder, I like it. I have no issue with it. The only thing for under the eyes, it's not brightening. This is where I would prefer the e.l.f. Glow Halo Glow powder, or something that's going to add a little more brightening to under the eyes. But this works good if you're not too concerned about adding brightness under your eyes. With some trial and error of which powders you like best and what works best for you, go ahead, give it a try. You can't go wrong with using powder. There's a lot of benefits to doing so. If you don't want to, you don't have to, of course. But when it comes to making your makeup last long and your blush lasting all day, use a good powder. I also wanted to mention, you want to use a setting powder or loose powder on your face before going in with blush powder, because it makes it go on easier. It's not skipping or looking splotchy. It'll be better if you go in with a setting powder first to set underneath and then with powder products on top of that. Just another little tip there. If there's a tip or technique you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments down below. I look forward to hearing from you as always. And if you found this video helpful or informative, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't. It would mean the world to me. And turn on notifications to know each time I post a new video. And I'll see you all in the next one.